Welcome to the section on handling objections. So right now you're in the funnel. This means that you've had your first meeting. There seems to be some interest in the proposed deal or relationship that you've alluded to. And now you basically want to get from interest to getting that contract inked. Some of the things you're going to have to do before you get there earlier in the deal funnel are things like deal with common rebuttals, identify bottlenecks in the process of getting this deal done, getting buy-in from decision makers, warming your relationship so that you can get buy-in from decision makers, and preventing prospects from going cold. Now, we're going to talk about all of these things, but in this particular section, we're going to focus on rebuttals by looking at a few common ones and then how to handle them. So a very common rebuttal is, well, do you have any competitors? Who are they? Why wouldn't we build this ourselves? You know what? That just costs too much, or we just don't have the ability to pay for something like this right now. We don't have enough resources internally. We don't have enough developers or designers to actually make this implementation a reality. So let's talk about the first one on how to deal with competitor inquiry. Well, again, how you handle the competitor question determines on whether you're the market leader or a new entrant trying to upseat incumbent players. If you are the market leader, you never want to bring up competitors unless somebody else does. Again, and the reason is because the attitude that you're taking is that you're the industry standard. You don't even worry about mentioning competitors because you're the obvious choice for someone to work with. Now, if it turns out that they are brought up, you basically want to lean on your referenceable deals gracefully. And let's go through some specific examples of how to do this. So when somebody asks if you have any competitors, the thing that you don't want to say is bring up specific examples by saying, oh, you know what, our biggest competitors are company 1 and company 2. And the reason that you don't want to do this is because you position yourself directly against these people. And what you want to do is position yourself as different. Additionally, this statement does not signal market dominance. If people think that you do the same exact thing as these other people and that maybe you're just a little bit better, that's very different than just completely dominating a market. So here's a better way to handle competitor inquiry. We really don't feel like we have any competitors because truthfully, no one really does what we do like we do. But I guess some people have compared us to a few other companies out there. At the onset, this is a great way to respond to this question because A, you don't bring up any direct competitors. So if they don't know any of your competitors, you don't want to surface them if possible. And it also puts you in the bucket of being different or being unique, which is much better than putting yourself directly against somebody else so that they can compare you. When you say something like this, somebody can just continue to move on, or they might ask, well, what companies have people compared you to? At this point, you want to put the ball in their court by saying something like, I feel like we hear something new every day. I'd be curious to hear who you think our competitors are. So why put the ball in their court in this situation? Well, again, the lack of competitor focus on your end signals market dominance. Again, you're not worried about other competitors because you're the industry standard and the obvious choice for anybody to work with. Number 2, you don't want to expose them to competitors they're not aware of. So you name dropping versus asking them who they might think your competitors are is a way to avoid surfacing any potential competitors that they're not aware of. Number 3, you might be able to have them start revealing information about the research, feelings, and even conversations with who they're talking to. And this is just an excellent thing to understand because it allows you to position better than if you did not have this information. So what do you do when they bring up specific companies? So they might say something like, well, what about company X? Here's where you elegantly lean on those referenceable deals. So you might say something like, yeah, we've heard of them and they seem like they're a great little company, but there's a reason that Big Partner 1 and Big Partner 2 work with us. It's because we're the best and we're 100% focused on providing the best customer service possible or engagement growth possible or whatever it is that you're trying to optimize for this partner. If we want to just break this down real quick, it's important that you acknowledge their existence. And I always like to almost kind of belittle them with a submissive statement like, yeah, they seem like they're a great little company. And then follow that, but there's a reason that important company 1 and important company 2 work with us. And then you outline explicitly what that reason is. And from here, you can always do things as well, like highlight specific advantages if they pry. So if they say like, well, I mean, why again do they work with you, or whatever it is, you can dive deeper into that. It's because we're the best and we do X, Y, Z by highlighting specific advantages. Just generally always maintain the attitude that you're the obvious choice as the market leader, assuming that you are. Well, what about if you're not the market leader? What do you do then? It's better to take a more offensive stance because you have more to prove if you are not the market leader. So how do you do this? The way to do this is to focus on how you are different. So not only are you better, but you are very different. And again, when you position yourself as different, it's easier to justify going with somebody who's not the market leader because there's a greater perception of upside. If you're having difficulty figuring out how to position yourself on how you're different, an easy thing you can do is just determine all the ways that you're a little bit better than somebody else. And instead of saying better, just frame it in a way that you're different. So we achieve the same outcome, which is actually better in this different, unique way, whatever it is. But generally, it's all about how you position it in many cases. And you can accomplish that same different field so that you're not in the same bucket by just framing the things that you're better at as different instead of better. So an example of that would be single platforms data quality. We had 500,000 menus, and somebody else in the market, I think, had 450,000. Now, why should they work with us over the competitors when the number of menus that we have are relatively the same? Well, instead of arguing that they should work with us because we have just a little bit more data, we chose to take a stance that we're a different type of company, and the way that we get the data is different, which resulted in different quality. So all these other players, yeah, they have a lot of data, but here's the thing. They go about getting that data using technical means like scraping and even data entry. Single platform, we're a company that is focused on the local business, and being local is human. We know that even though that a lot of these restaurants have data on their website, that data is often out of date because these people just aren't technical. That is exactly why we focus on having a direct relationship with the local business and getting the data directly from the business owner themselves. We do this by providing them a portal that allows them to enter in this information incredibly easy, and even calling the business to verify that the data is correct. So yeah, sure, you might be getting a similar amount of data, but the way that which we go about that data is entirely different, which results in a different data quality. And this quality of data is only going to get better the more and more customers that we sign on. And that's just an example of how we positioned ourselves in a scenario where we were marginally better in terms of what they wanted, which was the amount of data, by focusing on data quality, how we obtained it, and the fact that we work directly with the local business, which is entirely different than this data set that's generated by technical means like scraping. Okay, that should give you a primer on how to handle competitor inquiry. What about the rebuttal, why wouldn't we build this ourselves? Well, there's many different things you can say to this. Number one, it's too expensive for you to do it ourselves. Why would you spend money on this when we can do it for you? Number two, it requires resources and expertise that you don't have. So you're telling me that you'd rather have someone from your development team work on this and build this when we're willing to do that and outsource that for you? Number three, it would take much longer for you to do this on your own versus partnering with us. Listen, we're going to get you the growth metric faster because we're going to be able to get this feature that you've been dying for much quicker than you building it yourself. Number four, we have proprietary content technology that you can't get anywhere else. So if you possess something unique, let's say a data set or maybe a piece of technology that their team isn't necessarily familiar with, make sure that you're levering that as a reason that these people should not be building this themselves and that they should be outsourcing the creation of this feature to a partnership with you. So what about price sensitivity? So this particular thing costs too much. Well, there's definitely some good ways to handle this. If somebody says it's too expensive or that they don't have the resources, truthfully, that sometimes is a good thing because there are deals out there that can be rat holes and that people don't have the resources to work with you, and you can spend a lot of time wasted on something that isn't ever going to go anywhere because somebody can't afford it or they don't have the development resources or whatever it is. So when somebody says this, it actually, and truthfully means it, it actually can be a good thing because you want to focus your time on relationships that are actually going to be actualized that allow your company to grow. But there are instances where you can turn people who originally say that something's too expensive. Let's talk about a few ways to do this. Number one, position your offer in terms of relativity. So what I mean by this can be demonstrated by these two simple ways to describe the price of an offering. You could say, our product costs $495 a year per enterprise seat. Or you could exercise a relative price frame by saying, for a little more than the price of a Coke a day, your employees can get a full year of whatever the software is called or advantage it is. Which one sounds cheaper? Boy, well, when you make me realize that my employees are going to get this benefit for literally $1 and something a day or a little bit more than the cost of a Coke at the soda machine, all of a sudden that seems a whole lot more affordable. And the cost benefit analysis is much more favorable when I'm just thinking about, should I give my employees a Coke or should I give them this thing that's going to make them much more productive at work? Another way you can disarm the rebuttal that something's too expensive is focusing on the opportunity cost of not taking advantage of this opportunity. So you might say something like this: I totally understand that you have limited resources and need to weigh each investment you make in your company carefully. But it seems pretty clear that you see the value here, which makes me think you'll likely eventually make this investment in your company. And by not investing your resources now, you're going to miss out on a full year's worth of whatever the insanely obvious benefit is. And just important components of this statement is acknowledging that this is expensive and that it's important for them to make proper choices when deciding where to allocate their money. And I like using the word investment instead of spend because that's truly what this is when you're charging for somebody. They're exchanging their money in order to receive an improvement, and that is an investment. So after that, highlighting the fact that, listen, you've indicated to me that you see the value here. And because you see the value here, that tells me you're eventually going to spend money on this. So planting to see that this cost is going to come now or later, but it's going to come. And then indicating that if you're still going to spend the money someday, you're going to have the same loss, but you're just not going to get the obvious benefit of a full year of whatever the awesome thing that you provide is. So that's kind of this broken down, and this can be incredibly effective by positioning via opportunity cost that somebody should spend now. And just remember, you can avoid price haggling altogether using these two strategies, which is explicitly stating why your product costs how much it does. So when there's a rhyme to a reason, there's just a justification there that often prevents people from delving in further around why something costs it how much it does or asking for a discount. And you can also indicate that you don't move on price or that it's only going to go up. By saying something like, yeah, today it costs $495 and I can't guarantee that that's going to be the same in 2 months from now or a year from now, but we don't plan on going any lower, that's for sure. And again, I can't make any guarantees that it's going to cost the same in 6 months. Let's real quick touch on resource scarcity, which is very similar to price sensitivity. So somebody might say, this sounds really great, but right now we just don't have the development resources to make this happen. Well, there's a couple things you can do. One, you can offer some of your own resources. So maybe part of your team executes the initial phases of the development. You can even send tech resources on site to their premises for a time period in order to aid or actually do the development themselves. You can also create a sense of urgency or scarcity so that the relationship gets prioritized. Now, we're going to talk more on this soon, but basically if somebody indicates that, we don't have the resources right now, you can go ahead and throw something in there like, oh, that's a shame because we're doing a giant launch release and there's going to be a ton of press around it with all of our partners, and it'd be excellent to get you guys in there. All of a sudden, they might find a spare developer in a dark room in the back to work on this when you give them some extra incentive that creates some reason to prioritize this. So hopefully that helped you with some actionable scripts and guides you can use to overcome common rebuttals. Generally, a best practice as you grow biz dev for your company is to just identify the common bottlenecks. So if you keep getting rebuttals over and over again, what you want to do is you want to write those down, and then you want to basically test and craft the ideal ways to answer them. And not only just answering the rebuttals, but preempting them within your pitch by statements, common questions, different ways to basically prevent those rebuttals from even coming up in the first place.